Have you ever worried that you're getting YouTube wrong? I did. So 6 months ago, I quit a channel with 370,000 subscribers that I'd been building for years, and I niched down on this channel you're watching right now because I believed that getting less views was the future of YouTube, and I wanted to prove it. So what has happened since? Did it wreck my income? And do I regret it? Well, now I'm going to show you behind the scenes of everything that went right and everything that went very, very wrong since making that decision 6 months ago. And if you're watching this at any point you think I'd like more regular updates on what this guy's doing, check out the link in the description. I share behind the scenes of this info weekly with my email list. So to start, I'm going to quickly recap why I made this, what some people call dumb decision. So the whole idea of the channel I quit called Film Booth was to help people grow on YouTube, but there's just too many different types of creators now, from like vloggers and educators, entertainment channels, short form creators, reaction. I could go on forever. But why does that matter? Well, because they all have different kinds of problems they care about. And because I was a channel about getting more views, I felt pressured to get big numbers on my videos, which forced me to keep my content kind of broad, and it worked. I pulled in record average views per video for my niche. But eventually, I realized that by optimizing only for views, I wasn't really diving deep enough to truly help people solve problems that really move the needle for them. And I also believed that by having a broader channel, I would be impacting my own sales. So my solution was just to quit and target a much more specific problem for a smaller group of people. I also believe that this strategy would be a much happier existence because I've never actually met anyone whose life is about chasing views, who's not stressed out and miserable. And it's really kind of sad how much YouTube messes with your head. So that's why I quit. Now let's have a look at the pros of what happened in the first 6 months after I killed my baby to help you work out if you should do the same before we get on to the bad stuff. Okay, so the first pro, and I totally underestimated the power of this, and it works like so. So imagine all you did was try and solve a problem for one type of person versus trying to solve multiple problems for different types of people. What do you think would happen after 6 months? Well, you'd have probably cracked fixing almost every issue for the one person, but gotten hardly anywhere with the other group because, well, you've not dedicated enough time to each individual issue. This is the real pro of niching down. What happened to me was, after 6 months of doing this, I could suddenly see problems my more targeted viewership had that I'd not picked up on before because I was distracted by just too many different types of people. That meant I could now find ways to fix them so I could talk about them more in my videos and my weekly emails and make changes to my program to solve them. And it made a huge difference. Yes, I got a lot less views, but I get replies to my email, not just saying how much people love them, but also, Ed, I did what you said and it worked. The comments underneath these videos on this channel are very different to my old channel too, which was often all about just how fun my videos were, whereas now there's almost like a different level of gratitude. My clients are getting better results too and finding everything a bit easier because all I do is think about one person and how to help them, and everything else just runs slicker. So if you're worried about niching down, you might just find it makes you a better creator. Bringing us on to the second pro, which is going to show you the result of this, and it absolutely has blown me away. So to explain why this is so powerful, let me introduce you to what I call the theory of Gary. So imagine you see your mate Gary across the street, and to get his attention, you go, blah, 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 blah. Stick with me. Now Gary doesn't turn around, he just keeps walking, but everyone else close to you stops and looks at you like, what the heck is going on? Whereas if you just turned around and gone, Gary, he'd have gone, "Oh, mate," and then he'd have come over to you. This is what happens when you go big on helping a more specific person with a problem, because your content cuts through the noise, gets their attention, and it speaks to them on a different level to everyone else. So what that meant for me was, on my old channel, I was getting around 100,000 views per video. My best month ever was $120,000. But after using the Gary theory, which slashed my views to about a tenth of that per video, I hit 300K in a single week in January and ended up with a wait list of hundreds of people on it. Now, full disclosure, I don't make that every single week. I think since I started this experiment, we've averaged about $250,000 a month, which is still a massive increase, apart from when I had to shut down my entire business, but we'll get to that in the cons section. So by being more niche down, your content doesn't just get the attention of the perfect people, but your offer, which should be very in line with your channel, will feel more relevant to more of them, which brings in more sales. Which brings me on to the next pro, which is going to require you to stop doing something to get better results, and it works like this. So I was chatting with a few of my clients recently, and they were like, Ed, how do you stop going into the YouTube studio and checking the YouTube data all the time? Which I thought was an interesting question because I pretty much never go in it, apart from checking like 3 things, and I'll talk about one of them later. Because when you make a conscious decision to slash your views, you just can't care about it that much. It's going to break you up here, and you'll always feel behind. So what do you do instead? Well, I came up with a new statistic that makes the YouTube studio almost feel a little bit dumb for businesses, and it will make you more money, and it'll actually tell you the real results of your content. And I call this metric impact. So to track impact, I set up special links in my videos that log email signups, applications to my program, and sales from individual videos. So now I have totally different metrics for a video's success that you can't see inside the YouTube studio. And the way I measure impact is by looking at how many people took an action as a result of the video. So an action can be a click on a video link, an email sign up, an application to my program, or a sale from that video. I mean, think about it this way, that if your content makes people take an action, it did something to them they potentially highly value, because we don't take actions on things that we're not interested in or don't care about. We can say that watch time and retention and comments and likes show impact, but it's not quite the same, because I used to use tricks to keep people watching and to get likes and to get more comments, but then they just go and watch someone else's video afterwards. When you make a video that causes them to take an action where they leave the platform to search out more from just you, which YouTube doesn't like, by the way, it means you've made them care about nothing else other than you, and that is what game-changing content will do. Also, when you have this data, you generally find that impact per view is much higher on what you might have traditionally written off as flops. This new way of thinking really does change the way I look at YouTube. Which brings me on to the next pro of niching. So does this whole idea of kind of going for a smaller audience make you feel a bit kind of like scared? You're probably thinking, oh, what if I try it and it went wrong for me? Well, this is the crazy thing about this. By focusing on a smaller targeted audience, I actually ended up seeing a bigger picture that I'd have never seen if I'd let those doubts stop me from doing this. Because what happened was I found all these problems my clients had that I couldn't really find simple solutions to. So I asked, well, how do I fix them? And I ended up coming up with a software, which is totally unexpected. So the truth is, when you're more targeted, you start to see these little gaps and things that need solving that can open up the doors to new opportunities you would probably have never have dreamt of if you had stayed broad. So if you're worried about this, maybe change your mindset from doubt to what if amazing unexpected things happened to me that I couldn't have called in a million years. And that makes this whole thing more exciting. So the next pro was probably one of the most commented things people said to me when I made this change, which was, Ed, don't leave your old channel behind with loads of subscribers. Just pivot on there and keep the 400,000 subs. But I didn't want to for these reasons, and I think I can prove to you that I was right. So firstly, for me, practicing what you preach is absolutely critical. If I sit there telling you to do stuff I'm not doing, what does that say about me? Or what does it say about my information? So I had to leave it for that respect, but I also wanted to prove that I could progress and grow a business with smaller views and subs. Now, don't get me wrong, I had this head start with, a personal brand, so it's not really starting from zero, but that's the closest I can get without removing my face and popping someone else's on it. But secondly, this is the big reason I did it. So before I made the leap, I'd already started this channel you're watching, and I was comparing the audience data from Film Booth to it. And what I could see was that Film Booth's audience was mainly 18 to 24-year-olds, and about 50% were in locations where my product could actually service. Whereas the channel you're watching was mainly people above 30, and a massive percentage were in locations I could actually work with. So although the views were smaller, pretty much every one of the viewers watching this channel was ideal. So I thought, well, why try to reshape Film Booth when the audience I want is just already here? I also know that smart people, when they watch good content, don't care about the sub count. They just go, how can I work with this person? So earlier, when I mentioned the data that I do look at on YouTube more often now, is this audience tab, because I want to make sure it doesn't change too much and end up going out to the wrong people. Now, every now and then, I make a video like this one, that's on screen right now, that is broader. The whole idea is to cast a wider net, so you do reach some of the wrong people to get more of the right people, but it's not the sort of thing I'm going to do over and over again. And that's why most of the time I will whack the word business in the title, and that stops this from happening. It only appeals to a more targeted audience, which probably kills the views a bit, but it does grow the business. So putting it simply, the pros are that by going for impact with a smaller audience, you basically play a different game that can make you more money, and I believe can change way more lives. And I also believe this is the future, and AI is going to force you into this position no matter what. I'll make a video on that soon. I'm not going to go into that now. But what are the cons? Well, despite all of this amazing stuff, I almost quit in November 2024. So let me explain this, as it's not really something I've heard that many people kind of admit to before. And I know a lot of you guys are going to come up against this at some point, but I think I have a solution for you. So before this niche down, my kind of monthly turnover went from 60 on a bad month to 120K on a good month. And I had a mixed business model. So the main thing was called a cohort, which is a program that runs for 10 weeks. And what I'd do is I'd open up sales, the spaces would fill out, I'd run it, and then 3 months later, I'd repeat, sell it out again, do another 3 months. So each one would have around 40 spaces, and at $5,000 each, if I ran it 4 times a year, it would make about $800,000 over a 12-month period. I then had a mid-ticket product at $1,000 that kind of just sold evergreen. It was always open, and that bumped things up above $1 million. Now, the coolest thing about this was all I had to do was one call every week, and then I'd go to the community chat a couple of times a day, and I'd answer questions from my clients. 40 people in a cohort sounds a lot, but it's not. They're not that demanding. But I also had 2 other people helping me in there, so it's kind of an easy 8 or 9 hours work a week to generate $1 million a year with huge profit margins, and that's just absolutely amazing, right? But when I realized I wanted to help a more specific viewer, it meant I had to rebuild my product from scratch. And one of the pieces of feedback I gotten from my previous clients was that they hated the cohort model. They didn't want to take 10 weeks to smash through content. They just wanted to go, go, go. So I thought, well, I'll drop that and design this new thing so that people can just join at any time and move through it at like their own faster pace if they like. So I ran some numbers and thought, well, if I can get this product to 200 grand a month, that's probably just going to mean twice the work, right? So I thought, well, can I spare 16 hours a week? And of course I can. Like, it's not that much time, right? The thing is, I massively underestimated the power of all of this, launched, and suddenly jumped up to 300k months, which is like 21 hours of work a week, right? Well, no, because it turns out that 3xing isn't 3 times the work of 100k a month. It's way more if you don't have systems in place to deal with this. Now, it's not like things went really wrong here. Clients were still loving it, results were coming in. That was absolutely fine. The real problem was behind the scenes in my own life, because my work days were now getting pretty long, trying to look after clients and sales and make content for the channel and do marketing. And even with a team of now 7 people helping me manage the clients, it was getting a lot tougher. But it still was not the biggest issue for me until I got really ill. Like 24 hours, I can't even remember what happened ill, followed by very sweaty 2 weeks in bed. But this growth was continuing whilst this was all happening. Now, I know I should have taken time off, but I just don't want to let my clients down. So my life for a few weeks was sleep, awake, look after them, sleep, shiver, sweat. I was drinking 9 liters of water a day. I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but toilet paper sales exploded in Dubai. But after 2 weeks, I was kind of well enough to not spend a lot of my day in bed. But something was still not right. I was exhausted all of the time, and this just went on for months. I was also living in an Airbnb that stank, and I just couldn't bring myself to find another one because my energy was so low. So I just used to sit there, sometimes heaving. It became an absolute hell. And in October, I looked in my bank account and there was $1 million in there, and I just went, give it back to them, shut it all down and retire. You can't do this anymore. I was like, well, what will you do instead? So I started planning my new retired life. I found a nice house in the countryside with a big lawn. I thought, yeah, I'm going to make that lawn look amazing. I reckon I can kill half a day a week mowing. And then I thought, okay, what about the rest of the week? I still need to kill 4.5 days before the weekend, and everyone I know isn't at work, so I'll just be alone. Maybe I'll go for a run. And then I realized, oh my gosh, this sounds awful. I can't retire. There's nothing else to do. So I tried harder to plan my dream retirement. And after 45 minutes, I came up with a new channel and a new product. And my dream retirement was basically doing what I'm doing right now. So I thought, well, this is mad. You can't quit because you just end up in the same place. So instead, I asked myself, what is it that is making you feel like you need to stop so bad? So I just wrote down on a list everything I was hating. And top of the list was feeling ill, which is understandable, and then not being able to cope with all the work at the same time, and the smell, which was easily fixable. So I thought, well, how could you run this in less time so that if you don't actually get better, you can keep doing it? Because there was a period where I didn't know what was wrong with me, and it didn't feel like I was actually going to improve. But doing that, the solution became clear. Firstly, find all the most commonly asked questions and stop people asking them. And then I went, well, what else takes a long time? And it was when me and my team give like feedbacks on scripts. So I thought, well, how can I do that faster? So I tried AI bots to help us with that. Not to replace us, but just to help my clients move faster. And they were really good. A lot of people have just stopped asking me and just go to the bots now. I then looked and I was like, well, I could automate most of my processes. I'm just repeating over and over again every day. And then I finally realized it was these parasites from Bali eating all my energy and making me sick. I managed to get better, but now I had a list with every problem to fix so that I would try and like love life again. The thing is, if I were to action all of these tasks and keep running the business and the channel, it would probably take 6 to 8 months to complete. So I did something extreme and I shut down sales and said, right, you've got 2 months to fix every single problem on that list that makes you want to quit, because you can't quit because your lawn's not big enough to mow 7 days a week. Now, this meant missing out on 500,000 sales, but I remade like 75% of one of my courses based on every question I've been asked for 6 months. I removed stuff, I built new systems, new processes, new AI, I got in a couple more team to help, and then I relaunched, and the thing sold like crazy, and that's how I made $300,000 in a week. So the con really was I just wasn't prepared for scaling or how well this would work, which I'm not going to beat myself up about, because how the hell would I know that this would happen? You just don't know until it happens. But really for you, if you're finding business or YouTube really hard, and you probably are because it is hard, and if you wake up wanting to quit, please don't, because the payoff you get from YouTube is absolutely insane. And retiring sounds really boring. So just write down everything that makes you feel bad and just make that your to-do list to fix and make it a priority. Now, the knock-on effect of this is very likely going to be that you make your product and your service 10 times better too, which will in turn improve other people's lives. And then when you have that list, you want to ask, well, who can fix these things for me? And then hire them if you have cash, as well as look at how you can do it using AI and automation, because that can save you hours and hours and hours now. I need to make more on this because I've built some stuff that's blowing my mind. Now, there is another pro of my big parasite con I want to share with you too. So when I was ill, I really wanted to keep posting videos because I was supposed to be more consistent and it just wasn't happening. But I didn't have time. So I was like, how can I post a video a week still? So I just looked at what I already had and I posted a compilation of my old film booth videos from my old channel, which Greg, the editor, did pretty much all the work. And it made a lot of sales, and that really grew the business too. I found old scripts that I'd never actually filmed, that I'd worked quite hard on, so I thought, oh, why don't you make them instead? I took emails that I'd been sending to my list, and I turned them into videos, and a lot of them did really well. But I basically kept the channel ticking with like minimal effort, which continued to grow the business. And really, it made me realize that, well, firstly, if you write something, don't just assume it's not good enough and not put it out. I think you're better off just making it and get it out and see what happens. But secondly, when you have a business and an offer, you just don't need every video to be a blockbuster. Just post consistently and your business will maintain or grow. Another thing you really want to be thinking about, of course, is just how can I reuse the things I've already got to make my life easier? So in terms of the cons, that's kind of it. And if I'm honest, I'm kind of glad I got ill because having that big problem meant I had to fix it. If I'd kept going without that problem, I don't think I would have stopped to action everything I did, which made everything work so much better. So with all this in mind, should you niche down? Well, when I email my list talking to them about this, most people's replies are, Ed, how do I know that I'm not going too niche? So let's look at that. My problem was that the YouTube space had grown so big so fast, it just didn't make any sense to be a general channel anymore. But don't just do what I did because it worked for me. We need to stop and think here. Because if you're already helping, let's say, men in their 40s lose weight, you might have already landed in a niche that you need to be in. Might not need any fixing. So the first thing is not just to assume you have to go more niche because you might already be in the right place. The next thing's simple. Just search the problem you want to become known for solving and see if there are videos on that topic getting a decent amount of views. Now, I personally think for most businesses, 10,000 views per video is more than enough if it's your perfect audience and you get good at coming up with an offer and a sales page and kind of do everything I've been talking about. Now, 10,000 views as a ceiling in YouTube terms is very small, but if it's the perfect audience, it doesn't matter. And then you just test. So YouTube's a journey of exploration. Look at every famous channel. None of them end up where they started. I think I'm a great example of this. So if you have an existing channel, just dip your toe into the new direction with a few videos covering it and just see what happens. It's kind of common sense, really. We don't want to jump into a niche with no demand, but we also want to jump into one that differentiates us. So just look for views on videos about the problem you want to solve and build your entire channel around that. And if you find that the videos start doing well or sales keep coming in, then keep doing it. Now, if you want to learn the system I use to get into the position I'm now in today, and I believe anyone can use this to go from $0 to $1 million on YouTube, then watch this video next as I've laid out the entire thing in an epic deep dive. See you in 6 months with the next update, unless you're on your email list, and I'll see you soon because I talk about it a lot.